wanting what I have. For me,
Wow.
that is the key to gratitude, and that may not be very unique way to describe it. I don't know. A lot of people might think of it that way, but that for me, that's what unlocks the gratitude in my brain and in my heart. It's not to say that I can't desire to have other things or pursue other goals, but if I want my wife, if I want my kids, not somebody else's kids, if I want my clients, if I want my podcast, then I'm thankful, right? If I wanted your podcast, then I'm not going to be thankful, right? You know what I mean? I'm always going to be striving and not feel at peace.
Stay connected to gratitude. Hit the follow button right now and join thousands of listeners tuning in each week. We're the Gratitude Seekers. Come join us.
Hi, Gratitude Seeker. Welcome to a new episode of the Gratitude Podcast. Today with us, we have David Trotter. He is an author, speaker, transformation coach, and host of Inspiration Rising, a podcast dedicated to inspiring women and the men who support them to rise up in life, love, and leadership. For over 25 years, David has helped people get unstuck, clarify their goals, and take their lives to the next level. David, welcome to the Gratitude Podcast.
Thank you so much, Georgian. It's an honor to be with you.
I want to thank you publicly as well for doing this at such an early hour where you live. I really appreciate that. And maybe you want to add a few things to what I just said to help people get to know you better.
Well, this is my very first podcast interview at 4:30 a.m. So, and you know what? The fun thing is, I'll never forget it, Georgian. I'll never forget this conversation with you. So that'll be fun. But I've had the opportunity to do many things over the course of my 25 years of career. I have been a pastor for over 10 years. I transitioned out of that over 12 years ago and started my own marketing business. And I've been a filmmaker as well. I've made 4 feature films, 3 documentaries on social justice issues, 1 scripted feature film. I've written a number of books. But the thing that I love to do more than anything is help people. And that is the kind of the golden thread that interweaves through all the activities that I've been able to do in my life. And how that plays out in a more formal way now is through both one-on-one and group coaching, helping people get unstuck and take their lives to the next level. So I love to be able to bring all those experiences to the table as I work with people. And for whatever reason, I do have kind of a secret sauce of getting things done. I know how to envision things and clarify the vision, get really clear on the goals, and help people move forward on their next steps. And that's fun for me to come alongside people and help them do that.
That's amazing. And it's really interesting for me that I am in a similar position, that I'm doing other things besides the podcast. And I think that's quite interesting that we have this in common. Like for me, it's the same idea, helping people with my skills, with the things that I know, and with my abilities. And like you were saying, the common thread is actually helping people and doing something that's benefiting them one way or another.
Yeah, that's great.
So, you're also an author, and I think it's a really interesting book that you wrote. And for me, what's most interesting is that it's focused, and a lot of your work, from what I understand, is focused on women. And I think that comes from a great appreciation for women, and I'm really curious, where did that start?
Yeah. Well, in the introduction of the book, first of all, I start thinking about the early years of my life and most people's lives. The number one person who brings us into the world and most often cares for us more intensely than anyone else, not just in terms of emotionally, but physically, is our mothers. Our mothers are the ones who not only create us for 9 months in their wombs, but then give birth to us and then just spend an enormous amount of time keeping us alive, safe, healthy, growing, and preparing for school. And then, at least in the United States, the majority of teachers through what we would call elementary school are women. Very few men are in that profession at that age of children. And then as we get older as kids, it kind of begins to flip flop. The people that begin to have more influence in our lives begin to be men. Like for me, my teachers in high school, more so men. The bosses that I had at part time jobs, men. The spiritual leaders that I had were men. The coaches that I had were men. And then from that age on, it seems like there's a lot more influence by the masculine or masculine energy or males than there are females. And I found that to be interesting, and wondered why that flip flop. Yet for me, at this stage in my life, for whatever reason, I work more so with women. And that's been true about the bosses that I've had, as a marketing consultant, the clients that I have, primarily women. I've worked with a lot of women in terms of ministry. And so when I started Inspiration Rising a year and a half ago, I asked my wife, it was actually prior to naming it. I said to my wife, I go, I've been making films about one every 2 years because they take that long. I really wanted to be making a difference more on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis than a year-to-year basis. And I said, I'd like to start a podcast and do some coaching alongside that. And of course, we started to ask the question, well, who would that be for? And as you know, um, you got to have a target audience in terms of your podcast. It's got to be for somebody, otherwise it's for nobody. And so I said, who are the people that I have most impacted in my life? The group of people. And we looked back over the course of those 25 years and said, well, it's really women. Women have been the people that have impacted me. And for whatever reason, that group of people, particularly women 30 to 50, are the women that are most attracted to the things that I've done, whether it's been ministry or the films that I've done, the marketing that I've done. And so I said, well, I'd love to do the podcast primarily for women. And then I love to put in parentheses, and the men who support them, because I believe that topics that I speak on, and I want to encourage more and more men to verbally, vocally, and passionately champion women. And so that's what I've been doing through Inspiration Rising. It's a little bit different, not everybody gets it. It's like, why is this guy doing this for women? Is he trying to tell women what to do? I go, no, not trying to tell women what to do. I'm actually highlighting women through my podcast and through the coaching that I do and the book that I've written. It's really about just sharing my wisdom, sharing my experiences, coming alongside and cheering people on to be their best, their best selves.
That makes a lot of sense, and yeah, I have a similar experience, and I think that's quite interesting. But I also wanted to get to something else. What is gratitude for you? I'm really curious on your own definition and perspective on gratitude.
Yeah. Wanting what I have. For me,
Wow.
that is the key to gratitude. And that may not be very unique way to describe it. I don't know. A lot of people might think of it that way, but that for me, that's what unlocks the gratitude in my brain and in my heart. It's not to say that I can't desire to have other things or pursue other goals. But if I want my wife, if I want my kids, not somebody else's kids, if I want my clients, if I want my podcast, then I'm thankful, right? If I wanted your podcast, then I'm not going to be thankful, right? You know what I mean? I'm always going to be striving and not feel at peace. And for me, gratitude creates peace, and ironically, peace for me is actually more important than gratitude in my life. I guess I'm going after the end result of peace, and gratitude is one of the pathways for me to cultivate peace. I lived a lot of my life up until 12 years ago when I had kind of a rock bottom experience where I didn't have peace. I had a lot of striving, a lot of pushing, a lot of trying to um, prove myself because I had this feeling of being less than and not enough. And so the way that that played out for me was constantly pursuing through academic achievements, and then through when I entered full-time ministry as a pastor, helping more and more people, growing the church bigger and bigger. And that created this striving and a desire toward productivity rather than peacefulness. And after getting kind of a rock bottom experience, I found that peace really needed to be the number one value in my life, because when I focused on productivity, it resulted in stress and striving. But if I focused on peace, I actually could ultimately end up performing in a way that was more sustainable. It allowed me to sustain myself and those around me for a longer period of time. So back to wanting what I have. When I want what I have, it cultivates peace in my life.
This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. The people in our life that matter most to us, that we appreciate most, also trigger us the most. Having a great couple relationship took work, and therapy played a big part in that. What I learned about myself in therapy is that I had the tendency to project many of my wounds on my partner. The therapist helped me see a different perspective in which I felt empowered, in control, and able to open myself much more to her. This led to lots of beautiful moments that I'm grateful to have experienced. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Become your own soulmate, whether you're looking for one or not. Visit betterhelp.com/gratitude today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/gratitude. That makes a lot of sense, and I love how clear this is, and I'm sure that there's a lot of there are a lot of things in the background when you before you got to this simple idea, and usually the wisest things are very simple, but they have so much depth to them. And for instance, like you mentioned, the fact that you appreciate your family, even though probably like all families, it's not always easy to do that. And just this idea, I love it. Wanting what you have, it's so powerful and so simple to just take it in and to see things from that perspective. I love it. I love it, and I think it's very powerful to have that outlook, because like you were saying, and we can strive for more and we can want other things, but at least from what I can see from the outside and also from my own experience, there is no end to this. Like you can never have
So true.
I don't know, a big enough reach, or I don't know.
So true.
It's a never ending story, but with the simple idea, like wanting what you have. It it just, like you said, when I think about it, it's indeed, it just brings peace.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it also, the fear for me was that if I am thankful and want what I have, that it will take away my motivation, that in some way it
Mm.
will make me, um, just be stuck and complacent. And yet the opposite is true for me when I'm um, operating from a place of thankfulness and wanting what I have. Then I'm coming from a place of peacefulness and settledness that allows me to serve others. If I'm striving to perform and be more and more productive, bigger, better, whatever that context that is, and that's obviously the people that are resonating with what I'm sharing are more type A personalities. Um, although I think we all kind of have a desire for something more, perhaps bigger, better in our life, whether it's a better, car, house, even I'm sick of my kids, moms that are listening going, I want somebody else's kids. You know what I mean? And then you
Yeah.
become resentful of your own kids and you're not present with them. And that's how it was for me for the first 10 years of my kids' life. I'd rather be working rather than being present with them because they were driving me crazy. And it had nothing to do about them. It had everything to do about me and my mindset and how I was approaching, and thinking about them. And now, after having made a shift in the midst of, kind of a rock bottom experience, I'm super thankful for my wife. I'm super thankful for my kids. And when I want them, all of a sudden, their qualities start to emerge, and I'm able to see the facets of their personality, their uniqueness, in a way that if I'm looking for their weaknesses, as we know, what we look for, we find. If I'm looking for their weaknesses, I'm going to see them all over the place, and I'm going to miss out on the uniquenesses and the beauty of them. And one of the greatest challenges that we have is we look at the weakness of what we have and the strength or beauty of what somebody else has, and it doesn't cultivate gratitude. It cultivates resentment. It cultivates a feeling, a desire for what other people have, and it doesn't ultimately produce a happy or healthy life. It causes us to feel this inner turmoil that it'll never be enough, and it'll never be fulfilling for us. Yeah, and it's
Exactly.
just it's a tough way to live, and I've lived that way, and I know a lot of other people do, and it takes an intentionality to cultivate gratitude. Just by listening to your podcast, George, and that's one of the ways that people can cultivate gratitude is just by having it front and center, going, okay,
Yeah.
here's how other people are thinking about it. How do I think about it? Causes us to process it and ask questions of ourselves.
Exactly. And the funny thing about um, thinking that, okay, somebody else's kids are better, if we have this perspective in a short amount of time, we would probably want other kids because if we have this perspective, it's what we have as a perspective, and if we have something different, probably we will find the faults in that as well. And that's why it's so powerful to change our perspective and to want what we have and to appreciate what we have, because this is the most powerful thing that we have. And the way we look at things, and the fact that we can choose to see things in a different way, and that, like you said, the effects of it are amazing, like people changing and showing different parts of themselves. That's wow. It's a miracle if you think about it. and
Mm-hmm.
we have that power, and we can do that. And I think that's amazing. And also, like you were saying, if we think about other people and other things that we don't have, like this can go on forever. Like
Yes.
no matter how much we have or how great things are, there's always going to be someone that has it better one way or another. And I think making peace with our choices and with the people that we have in our life, that's so powerful. And yeah, it really makes us want what we have. And life is so different when we do that, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I tell people, for me, the two keys to my own happiness or satisfaction is to have two things in place at all times. One, a thankfulness for what I have, and an intentionality toward pursuing what I desire. And so I need both of those in place. It's not an either or. I know that a lot of people, if there's just a focus on gratitude or thankfulness, I think that there can be a stagnation. And for me personally, I feel like I always enjoy the journey, the adventure of creating, producing, doing new things. For me, that's fun, exciting, and adventurous. But if it doesn't start with a sense of thankfulness, it'll the why can be filling some sort of hole in me. But if I'm coming from a place where I'm working on my own wholeness, meaning that I'm embracing the fact that I am already enough. I'm already whole. I don't have to do or be anything else to be loved or enough. If I'm coming from that place, then not only do I have gratitude, but I can have a level of intentionality to pursue things that I want to experience or things that I want to do. The key difference there is the motivation, the why. If I'm doing something to fill the hole, to somehow prove myself, then it's going to feel like striving. But if I'm doing it because I have a desire to serve, I have a desire to experience adventure or a different facet of life, then it feels like this beautiful kind of ebb and flow of thankfulness, intentionality, thankfulness and intentionality back and forth. And I really like that rhythm for my life. That feels like that's working well for me. It's a reminder. It's a constant reminder though, because sometimes I'll be really excited about a project and I'll push, and I'll be like, why do I feel like I'm striving? Why do I feel like I'm just tired in this moment? I'm like, oh, because I'm pushing. I am striving. I'm trying to, get this thing done. Versus, okay, back to thankfulness, back to gratitude. Now I'm coming at it from a heart of service. How can I use this to help others? How can I use this moment and be focused on not just the project, but the people that are being impacted by the project?
Wonderful perspective. It's so true, and people pick up on this. Like we can feel if someone is trying to fill a void, or if what he or she is doing is actually from a place of gratitude, a place of fulfillment. And it's so much easier to be more generous and more authentic when you come from that point of view, from fulfillment, from being enough. And
Yeah.
that's amazing, and that fills other people up as well. And that's actually what we want to do, to help people and to make an impact. And we can do that best when we are in a good place, and we can get to that good place by being grateful and filling ourselves up at firstly. But
Mm-hmm.
I also wanted to get to something else that has to do with your book. um, we have this tendency to focus on what isn't enough inside of us as well. Like the fact that we, even though we have some qualities, we have so many flaws, so many things that aren't as we would like them to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you write about this as well in your book, and I think it's something very interesting to explore from this perspective of gratitude, of appreciating ourselves and our strengths, and of course what we can do next with them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, the book is called Empowered to Rise, by the way, and it is available on Amazon, I think, in lots of different countries. But for me, it's the beginning. The beginning is embracing what I call our true identity. That if we embrace who we truly are, we are going to be coming from a place of wholeness. And then we can add the skills that we need to continue to work on. And I differentiate between identity and skills. So, am I always loving in terms of a skill? No. But is my core identity, my true identity, that I am love? Yes. Right? I wrote a manifesto that the book is based on. And I wrote this manifesto for the Inspiration Rising community, the community around our podcast and the work that I do, because I wanted our community to understand the heart behind why I'm doing what I'm doing and what I want for myself and what I want for them. And I'd love to read this to you. It's real short, but
Sure.
it's kind of the backbone of the book, and the book elaborates on this. And it says, my life has been inspired from the moment of conception. I am whole and complete, just as I am. I don't have to do or be anything else to be loved. This is my true identity. Embracing my inspiredness, I am discovering my unique way to bring inspiration to the world. My life story, wiring, and strengths are my superpowers, and I'm learning to use them with others for the sake of others. I have access to all the resources I need to live out my inspiration, and I will be strong and courageous in the face of any challenge. My inspiration is rising. And so for me, it's knowing my true identity. As I know that, I'm realizing that I have a unique way to bring my inspiration to the world, the thing that inspires me. And I want to bring that to the world. And I'm doing that through the vehicle of my own superpowers, the thing that's unique about me. We call that our life story, our wiring and strengths. And I'm doing that with others and for others. I'm not just doing it for my sake to build my own thing, but I'm doing it with others and for the sake of others. And so that's what the book is all about, helping you understand your true identity, uncover your superpowers, and bring your inspiration to the world. I believe that all of us have something that is unique that we want to bring to the world, some gift, some talent, some vision. And it oftentimes will morph or change over time. I think that's, there is a thread that's interwoven through our entire lives, but there are different seasons of life where we bring different inspirations to the world. As moms who are listening, whether you work outside the home or not, a huge investment of your time and energy, the inspiration that you're bringing to the world is caring for your children. Although men are playing more and more of a partnership role in that, an equal role, let's be honest, women play a primary role. They're doing more than men in most situations. And so that's a huge investment that women are making in that season of life. And but yet in the women that I work with, oftentimes, once that child heads off to high school or college, oftentimes they're left going, okay, well, who am I again? Right? I've been pouring myself into this child for many years. Who am I? If I'm not just a mom, I want to, I'm something else. And it opens up a new season of life. So for them to be inspired in a new way. And then we work on, okay, what is that next thing that you want to pour your heart and soul into? Or if somebody has poured their heart and soul, let's just say, into a job or a career or a business, and they're in that down the road 5 or 10 years, and they go, man, I've been successful. I'm making 6-7 figures, but I'm not exactly feeling fulfilled or happy. It's like, I get it. I understand. I've been there. What does it look like to make a shift, make a change, and find something that is expressing a new inspiration in a new season of life? It's coming from a place of recognizing that you're already whole, right? You're not trying to build a new identity. You're embracing your true identity that's deep, deep down. Your true identity is not based on the car you drive, the house you have, the family that's around you. All those things make up part of your persona and who you are. But your true identity is that you're already loved, that you're already whole, that you're already inspired. Now, what does it look like in this season of life to live that out in a unique way? And I love helping people kind of figure that out.
Wow, I love this perspective, and it's so well thought. And yeah, I think it's really great that you're bringing this awareness to the world, and also I love how specific it is and how tailored it is to different parts of our lives. Because indeed, we, even as men, we have different identities as we grow older.
Yes.
And I think that's very important to acknowledge that even if we were someone like 10 years ago, or we had a certain identity, we evolve, we change, we learn new things, we I don't know, we get sculpted by life, and something entirely different might be who we are in 10 years. And I think that's a really important thing to take into consideration when you think about your identity. But I'm also really curious on how we can uncover our superpowers. Like, maybe some, or maybe even many of our listeners might not think they have a superpower. How can we find out what's our superpower?
Yeah. Well, I believe that our superpowers come from a number of different places in our life, the origin of them. One is that our life story. Georgian, you have a very different life than I do, a different life story, right? Where you've grown up, your family, the things that you've gone through, the ups, the downs, the twists and turns, the challenges that you have gone through, unless they're still raw, if you've been able to process them, those become superpowers because you've gone through something that somebody else maybe hasn't gone through. Whether it's, let's just say that you had a parent who had gone through an illness, and that was a challenge for your family. Well, you're stronger because of that. You have a unique perspective on illnesses of loved ones, and you're able to speak to that and experience that in a different way than I would. Perhaps you moved around a lot, or you grew up in a certain part of the world. That becomes a part of your superpower because of what you've experienced. That's unique to you. The other part is your wiring or your personality. Every one of us has a unique personality. And yet there are a number, we know that there's a lot of assessments out there that can help us understand our personality through a certain lens. Some of those might be called the Myers-Briggs type indicator. You can find that free online. Of course, there's always the paid version, but there's free ones out there. There is now something that's super popular called the Enneagram. It's an ancient way of looking at yourself and how you live out into the world. Well, your personality, Georgian, is part of your superpowers, right? You see things in a very unique way, and you go after them in a unique way. The other is your strengths. And I differentiate strengths from personalities because strengths can be innate. They can be something that's you're born with, but it's also something that's cultivated. And the tool that has helped me so much through this is what's now called the Clifton Strengths. It used to be called the Gallup Strengths Finder tool. But now it's called the Clifton Strengths. Are you familiar with that at all, Georgian?
To be honest, not really.
Okay, so the Gallup organization, which is a large research organization, I believe they're based here in the United States, they identified, I can't remember, 34, 36 strengths. And you take a test, and the principle is that as we're growing up in life, at least in the United States, if I ask someone, could you have more progress in your life if you worked on a strength or if you worked on your weaknesses? Now, in the United States, we would say, well, you got to work on that weakness, but you got to make that better. You got to turn that weakness into a strength, right? But research shows us that the degree to which you can grow as a human being is far greater by focusing on a strength than a weakness. You can only turn that weakness into less of a weakness. You really rarely can you turn that into a full-blown strength. So they focus on these 30 plus strengths through an assessment, and they help you identify your top 5 strengths and really live into those strengths as your superpowers. That this is a unique way that you have a strong way of approaching the world. So life story, your wiring, and your strengths. Those are some incredible superpowers that you bring to the table. Most often, those coalesce, those 3 things come together, and the strengths that you have are those experiences where you go, and you've heard this before, man, time just flies by. It feels like you're doing something that just comes natural to you. And you're wondering, why does everybody think this is a big deal? Other people go, Georgian, wow, I can't believe you're able to do that. You're able to just make that happen. And you're like, oh, can't everybody do that? It's like, no, not everybody can do that. That's your superpower, Georgian. And so as we're able to tune into our life story, our strengths, and our personality or our wiring, then we start to see how those 3 things coalesce to make those superpowers. Then once we know those, we can utilize them in any context. So one of my superpowers, Georgian, as I mentioned to you earlier, is getting things done. I mean, if you told me almost anything, I could see a vision, develop some goals, see the next steps, and begin to work, toward it. Now, for other people, it can feel super overwhelming. They can't see the end result. It can feel like, oh, there's no way I can do that. This superpower has allowed me to start churches and grow them to be quite large. It's allowed me to finish multiple degrees. It's allowed me to produce and direct, as I mentioned, feature films. I've done a lot of humanitarian work in the nation of India, and I wanted to draw people's attention to the issue of orphans in India. So a buddy and I said, well, what if we did a documentary? And, he looked at me and I looked at him. I was like, have you ever done a documentary? No. Have you? No. Well, let's do one, And we got a cinematographer, went to India, and we began to look for orphans living on the streets, because that's who we wanted to highlight, the people that were the kids that had been abandoned or orphaned from an early age, and the challenges that they faced. We found a group of orphans living alongside a railway. There was about 25 of them. They were from age 3 to 23, kind of living as almost like a pseudo family. We hung out with them for 2 weeks, filmed them, interviewed them through a translator. We even slept on the street with them one night. It was the worst night of sleep in my life. Came back, edited that film, and that film got picked up for distribution, and it was on Netflix for 2 years, from 2012 to 2014. What the heck? My very first film was on Netflix. Now, Netflix doesn't even buy films like that anymore. That was like back in the day. But my whole point is, why was I able to do that? Because that's part of my superpowers. I can see things and I can help get them done. I can help see, come to fruition. And that's not only true about a film. That's true about starting something, starting an organization, writing a book, whatever it might be. And I'd love to be able to bring that superpower alongside other people who maybe don't see that potential in themselves, and help them see that potential and give them in collaboration a roadmap that is able to help them see how to start that business, how to make that next step in their career, how to move from a meaningless situation to something that's meaningful. And so you all, you, Georgian, every single person listening, you have superpowers. You may not know what they are quite right now, but if you start to ask the people around you, one of the questions that I've seen posted on social media, most people know what a TED Talk is, right? That's like a 7 or 10 minute talk, short talk. Is just go, if I were to do a TED Talk, what would you suggest that it be on? And if you ask a friend that question who knows what TED Talks are all about, they probably will be able to come up with a topic. And that's going to be a big clue of what your superpower really is.
Wow, that's a great idea. I love it. I love it. And it's so smart, and it's so easy, and it makes so much sense, because if you ask, like with gratitude, I think that sometimes if we want to feel grateful, just asking what am I grateful for isn't the best way to go about it. Sometimes you can use much smarter questions to elicit a state of gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is very similar to that. Like, of course, people are going to answer in a very different and in an easier way this question, rather than, okay, what am I good at?
Right.
Makes so much sense. And I love what you said about uncovering our superpowers. And yeah, like, it, for me, this connects so beautifully with gratitude. Like, um accepting and appreciating who you are, for me, is one of the ways of accessing those superpowers. Also appreciating and finding the blessings in disguise in the situations that we've been through.
Mm-hmm.
And also focusing on the things that we are good at, and appreciating those, and uh, sharing them with the world. And I think, yeah, that's amazing, and it connects beautifully to gratitude, and to what we are talking about here on the podcast. So yeah, thank you so much for this, and I think it's going to be something really interesting for our audience to explore as well. So we are nearing the end of our time together, and I wanted to ask you, where can our audience get in touch with you, where they can get the book?
Yeah, absolutely. Once again, the book is called Empowered to Rise. The Secret to Embracing Your True Identity, Uncovering Your Superpowers, and Bringing Your Inspiration to the World. It's available on Amazon, and just search for Empowered to Rise. You can also find our podcast, Inspiration Rising, on all the podcast apps. And if you go to our website, insporising.com, 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 you can find all the information on coaching programs and the book and the podcast and all that good stuff.
Thank you so much for your time, and for being here with us, and for all the really smart ideas that you shared with us. Also, do you have a final message for our listeners? Maybe something to ponder, to think about after they listen to this episode?
I think I would just ask, what would it look like to want what you have? As you are driving or walking or working out or wherever you're listening to this, as you think about the life that you have, the partner that you have, whether the kids, the job, all of that, not to say that you don't want to be intentional about cultivating something unique or something more, but in the process, what would it look like to be thankful for what you have? How can you see the beauty? How can you see the positivity? How can you see the good qualities in the things that are in your life right now? Because that's going to help you, no matter if you're taking a next step or you're staying right where you are. How can you see the good qualities and cultivate wanting what you have? That's gonna produce the happiness and healthiness that you really want.
Wonderful. This is the perfect ending to this interview. Thank you.
Thanks, Georgian. It's been an honor to be with you.
Hey, Gratitude Seeker. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this interview. I really appreciate it. And if you could think of one person that would also benefit from it, share it with them. It might actually be the inspiration that they need to make their day or maybe even their life much better. Thank you so much once again. This has been Georgian Benta. Don't forget to keep seeking and spreading gratitude.